Tanayam. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Gaura Hari. Jai Go Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Haribol. Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ji ki, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Panchatattva ki, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev ki, Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satashishimad Apai Charanada Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satashishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Zagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gokupinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Srimad Bhagavatam.
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jannaballabha Girivaradhari. More volume. Gopi Jannaballabha Girivaradhari. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jannaballabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jannaballabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Junatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Shri Brahma Samhita, please. Shvara Parama Krishna Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Sahasrapatra Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatpadam Tadkarnikaram Tadama Tadanantanksha Sambhavam Karnikaram Mahadyantram Shatkonam Vajrakilakam Shadanga Shatpadistanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasena Vastitam Hiyat Jyoti Rupena Manuna Kama Bhijena Sangatam Tatkinjalkam Tadangshanam Tatpatrani Srayam Api Chatur Asram Chatparitaha Shvetadhipakyam Bhadputam Chatur Asram Chatur Murtesh Chatur Dhamma Chatuskritam Chatur Bhi Purushartaischa Chatur Bir Hetu Bir Vratam Shulardasha Bir Adadham Urdvadho Didvavikshapi Ashtabhir Nidibir Jushtam Ashtabhi Shiribistata Manurupaishcha Dashabhir Dikpalai Parito Vratam Shamar Gauraishcha Raktaishcha Shuklaishcha Parshadarshabai Shobitam Shaktibistabir Adbutabis Samantataha Evam Jyotirmayo Deva Sadananda Paratparaha Atmaramasya Tasyasti Prakritya Nasamagama Mayaya ramamanasya naviyogastaya saha Atmana ramaya reme tyakva kalam shrishikshaya Niyati sarama devi tatpriya tadvasham tada Talingam bhagavan shambhur jyoti rupa sanatanaha Yayoni sapara shakti kamo rupa hadare Linga yonyatmika jata ima maheshwari prajaha Shaktiman purushasoyam linga rupi maheshwaraha Tasmin avirabhu linge mahavishnur jagatpatihi Sahasra shirsha purushaha sahasraksha sahasrapad Sahasra bahur vishvatma sahasramsha sahasrasu Narayana bhagavan apastasmat sanatanat Avirasit karanarno niti sankarshanatmakaha Yoga nidram katastasmin sahasrangsha swayam mahan Tadroma vilajaleshu bijam sankarshanasya cha Haimanyantari jatani mahabhutavratani tu Pratyantam evamekam shad vishati swayam Sahasramurtha vishvatma mahavishnu sanatanaha Vaman gadasra jad vishnum dakshinan gat prajapatim Jyotirlinga mayam shambhum korcha deshad avasrajat Ahankaratmakam vishvam tasmat etad vyajayata Atattaistri vidher vesher lila mudvahata kila Yoga nidra bhagavati tasya shir iva sangata Shashikshayam tato nabhes tasya padmam vaniryayau Tannalam hemanalinam brahmano lokumadbhutam Satvani purvarudani karanani parasparam Samavaya prayogascha viminani pratak Chitshaksha sajjamanota bhagavanadi purushaha Yojayan mayaya devo yoga nidram akalpayat Yojayiva tutanyeva pravivesha swayam Guham pravishte tasmimstu jiva pratibudhyate Sanityo nitya sambandha prakatishcha puraivasa Evam sarvatma sambandham nabhyam padmam harerabhut Tatra brahmad bhavad bhuyash chaturvedi chaturmukaha Sanjato bhagavat shaktya tatkalam kilachodataha Shashikshayam matim chakre purva samskara samskritaha Dadarsha kevalam dvantam nanyat kim api sarvataha Uvacha puratastasmai tasya divya saraswati Kama Krishnaya Govinda He Gopi Jana Ityapi Balabhaya Priyavaner Mantram Te Dasyati Priyam Tapastvam Tapa Etena Tavasidhir Bhavishyati Atate Pe Susuchiram Prinang Govindam Avyayam Shvetadipa Patin Krishnam Golokastam Paratparam Prakritya Gunarupinya Rupinya Paryupasitam Sahasradala Sampanne Koti Kinjalka Brahmite Bhumishchintamanis Karnikare Mahasane Samasinam Chidanandam Jyotirupam Sanatanam Shabda Brahma Mayam Benum Badayantam Mukham Buje Vilasini Ganavritam Swaswar Angshar Abhishtutam Ata Benundaradasya Trayimurti Mayi Gatihi Spuranti Prabhaveshashu Mukhabjani Swayambhuvaha Gayatrim Gayatastasmad Adigatya Sarojajaha Samskritashchari Gununa Dvijatam Agamattataha Traya Prabhutota Vidhir Vignata Tattvasagara Tushtava Vedasarena Stotrina Nikeshavam Chintamani Prakada Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesha Surabira Pipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venung Kvanantamadavindam Dalaya Taksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakortikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvana Malya Vamshi Ratnangadam Pranaya Kelikala Vilasam Shyamam Tribangalalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yassa Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayauvanam Cha Vedeshu Dula Mamadula Mamatma Bhaktau Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Shatavatsara Sambragamyo Vayoradhapi Manaso Muni Pundavanam Sopyastiya Praparasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Saura Charitum Jagadanda Kotim Yat Shakti Rasya Jagadanda Chayaya Danta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yadbhava Bhavi Tadiyo Manujasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Shayanana Bhusha Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratipavitabis Tabirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalabhi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena Daksadeva Hridayeshi Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunasarupam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramari Muti Shikalanyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvanesha Kintu Krishna Swayam Samababat Paramapumanyo Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhabato Jagadanda Koti Shashesha Vasudari Vibhuti Bindam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anantam Ashesha Bhutam Vindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Maya Hiyasa Shakatanda Satani Sute Trigunyatad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Mana Sattva Valambi Parasattvam Vishuddha Sattvam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratipalam Smarutam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayatya Jastram Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Golokanam Ninijadam Nitaleta Tasya Devi Mahesha Haridama Suteshu Teshu Tete Prapavanichaya Vihitaschayena Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shrististiti Pralayasarana Shakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Viparati Durga Ichchanurupam api yasya chacheshtate sa Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Shiram Nyatara Vikara Vishesha Yogad Sanjayate Nahitata Pratakasti Heto Yasham Bhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karyad Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Deeparcha eva hira shandanamabhyapetya Deepayate vraftate hetu samana dharma Yastadrage vihicha vishnu chaya vibhati Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yakarnarnavajale bhajati sma yoga Nidramananta jagadanda saromakupaha Adhara shaktim abalambya param smamurtim Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yasyaika nisasitakal namatavalamya Jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Hihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Bhasmanyatasmasakaleshi nijeshi teja Swiyam kiya prakatayata vitadvadatra Brahmaya esha jagadanda vidana karta Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yatpada Pallava Yugambi Nidaya Kumbha Dvanve Pranama Samaye Saganadi Raja Vignan Vihantum Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Agnir Mahi Ganganamam Mumbrudishascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vivavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yachakshire Safita Sakalagrahanam Rajasamasta Sudamurti Rashesha Tejaha Yasyagnaya Brahmati Sambratakala Chakro Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Dharmo tapapa nichaya shutayasta pamsi Brahmari kita patagava dayascha jivaha Yadatra matra vibhava prakata prabhava Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yastvindra gop Tavindra Mahosa Karma Bandharu Rupa Palabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Piti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya tasya sadrishim tanamapurete Govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami Govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami Sriya kanta kanta parama purusha kalpataravo Druma bhumishchintamani garamagi toyam amratam Katha ganam datyam kamanam api vamshi priyasaki Chiranandam jyoti paramapi taraswadyam api cha Sayatra shiradhi sravati surabhibhyasya sumahan Nime sarjakyo vavrajati nahi atrapi samayaha Bhaje shveta dvipam tamaham iha golokamitiyam Virantaste shantakshiti viralachara katipaye Ato vacha mahavishnur bhagavantam prajapatim Brahman mahatva vignane prajasarge chachinmatihi Pancha shlokim imam vidyam vatsatatvam nibodame Prabhude jnana bhakti vyam atmayananda chinmayi Udet yunutama bhaktir bhagavat prema lakshana Pramanaist tatsaracharais tarabhyase nirantaram Bodhayan atmanatmanam bhaktim apyutamam labed Yasya shreyaskaram nasi yaya nivratum apnuyat Yasarayati mameva bhaktim tameva sadayed Dharmananyan parityaja mamekam bhaja vishwasan Yadrishi adrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi Kurvan nirantaram karma loko yam manavartate Tenaiva karmana dhyayam mam param bhaktimichyati Aham hi vishwasya characharasya Bijam pradhanam prakriti pumamscha Maya hitam teja idam bibarshi vidhe videhi tomato jaganti Ishvara parama Krishna sakchirananda vigraha Anadiradir govinda sarva karana karanam Iti Sri Brahma Sanghita Sampurnam Hari Om Chaitanya Charitamrita
The recording has stopped.
Jaya Jaya Shri
This
Chaitanya
meeting is
Jaya
being recorded.
Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Actually, you grab the volume that about the Panihati festival. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam, Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Sri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam, Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sadvatutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Sri Radha Krishna Padan, Sahagana Lalita Shivishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nitai Namineche Namirhate Shadamudyenam Dite Chede Nitai Namineche Namirhate Shadamudyenam Dite Chede Nitai Namineche Namirhate Shadamudyenam Dite Chede Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gadadhar Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare both I think okay this is Panihati right okay we'll start there. This is from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets the meeting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Raghunath Das Goswami. A summary of this chapter is given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhava Bhashya. You can put that here if you want. As follows. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into transcendental fits of ecstatic love, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami attended to him and satisfied him as he desired. Raghunath Das Goswami had been attempting to come to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a long time, and finally he left his home and met the Lord. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Shantipur on his way to Vrindavan, Raghunath Das Goswami had offered to dedicate his life at the Lord's lotus feet. In the meantime, however, a Muslim official became envious of Hiranyadas, Raghunath Das Goswami's uncle, and induced some big official court minister to have him arrested. Thus Hiranyadas left his home, but by the intelligence of Raghunath Das, the misunderstanding was mitigated. Then Raghunath Das went to Panihati, and following the order of Nityananda Prabhu, he observed a festival, Chidadadi Mahotsava, by distributing chipped rice mixed with yogurt. The day after the festival, Nityananda Prabhu gave Raghunath Das the blessing that he would very soon attain the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After this incident, Raghunath Das, with the help of his priest, whose name was Yadunandana Acharya, got out of his house by trickery and thus ran away. Not touching the general path, Raghunath Das Goswami secretly went to Jagannath Puri. After 12 days, he arrived in Jagannath Puri at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entrusted Raghunath Das Goswami to Swarup Damodar Goswami. Therefore, another name for Raghunath Das Goswami is Swarupera Raghu, or the Raghunath of Swarup Damodar. For 5 days, Raghunath Das Goswami took prasadam at the temple. But later he would stand at the Singhadwar gate and eat only whatever he could gather by alms. Later he lived by taking alms from various chatras, or food distributing centers. When Raghunath's father received news of this, he sent some men and money, but Raghunath Das Goswami refused to accept the money. Understanding that Raghunath Das Goswami was living by begging from the chatras, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented him with his own Gunjamala and a stone from Govardhan Hill. Thereafter, Raghunath Das Goswami used to eat rejected food that he had collected and washed. This renounced life greatly pleased both Swarup Damodar Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took by force some of the same food, thus blessing Raghunath Das Goswami for his renunciation. Kripagunar ya kugrihanda kupad udrita bhangya Raghunatha dasam nasya swarupe viditentar angam Shri Krishna Chaitanyam amum prapadye. With the rope of his causeless mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu employed a trick to deliver Raghunath Das Goswami from the blind well of contemptible family life. He made Raghunath Das Goswami one of his personal associates, placing him under the charge of Swarup Damodar Goswami. I offer my obeisances unto him. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Sri Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus Lord Gaurachandra performed various pastimes with his associates at Jagannath Puri in varieties of transcendental pleasure. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt pangs of separation from Krishna, he did not manifest his feelings externally, for he feared the unhappiness of his devotees. The transformations undergone by the Lord when he manifested severe unhappiness due to separation from Krishna cannot be described. When the Lord acutely felt pangs of separation from Krishna, only Sri Ramananda Roy's talks about Krishna and the sweet songs of Swarup Damodar kept him alive. Because the Lord associated with various devotees during the day, his mind was somewhat diverted. But at night, the pangs of separation from Krishna increased very rapidly. Two people, Swarup Damodar Goswami and the Ramananda Roy, stayed with the Lord to pacify him by reciting various verses about Krishna's pastimes and by singing appropriate songs for his satisfaction. Shubala jaiche purve Krishna sukhira sahai. Gora sukha dana hetu taiche Rama Rai. Previously, when Lord Krishna was personally present, Subala, one of his cowherd boyfriends, gave him happiness when he felt separation from Radharani. Similarly, Ramananda Roy helped give happiness to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Previously, when Srimati Radharani felt the pangs of separation from Krishna, her constant companion, Lalita, kept her alive by helping her in many ways. Similarly, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt Radharani's emotions, Swarup Damodar Goswami helped him maintain his life. To describe the fortunate position of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami is extremely difficult. They were renowned as intimately confidential friends of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord thus enjoyed his life with his devotees. O devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now hear how Raghunath Das Goswami met the Lord. When Raghunath Das, during his family life, went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Shantipur, the Lord gave him worthy instructions by his causeless mercy. Instead of becoming a so-called renunciate, Raghunath Das, following the instructions of the Lord, returned home and played exactly like a pounds and shillings man. Raghunath Das was inwardly completely renounced, even in family life, but he did not express his renunciation externally. Instead, he acted just like an ordinary businessman. Seeing this, his father and mother were satisfied. When he received a message that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had returned from Mathura city, Raghunath Das endeavored to go to the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, there was a Muslim official collecting the taxes of Saptagram. Purport. Formerly, when the Muslim government was in power, the person appointed tax collector would collect the taxes of the local zamindars or landholders. He would keep 1/4 of the collection for himself as a profit, and the balance he would deliver to the treasury of the government. When Hiranyadas, Raghunath Das's uncle, made an agreement with the government to collect taxes, the Muslim Chaudhry, or tax collector, having lost his position, became extremely envious of him. Hiranyadas was collecting 2 million coins and therefore should have delivered 1,500,000 to the government. Instead, he was giving only 1,200,000, thus making an extra profit of 300,000 coins. Seeing this, the Muslim Chaudhry, who was a Turk, became his rival. After sending a confidential account to the government treasury, the Chaudhry brought the minister in charge. The Chaudhry came wanting to arrest Hiranyadas, but Hiranyadas had left home. Therefore, the Chaudhry arrested Raghunath Das. Every day, the Muslim would chastise Raghunath Das and tell him, "Bring your father and his elder brother, otherwise you will be punished." The Chaudhry wanted to beat him, but as soon as he saw Raghunath's face, his mind changed, and he could not beat him. Indeed, the Chaudhry was afraid of Raghunath Das because Raghunath Das belonged to the Kayasta community. Although the Chaudhry would chastise him with oral vibrations, he was afraid to beat him. Purport. Raghunath Das belonged to a very aristocratic family of the Kayasta community. He had substantial influence with the local people, and therefore the Chaudhry or minister was afraid to beat him. Superficially, he would chastise Raghunath Das with threatening vibrations, but he did not beat him. The members of the Kayasta community in India are generally very intelligent and expert in business management. Formerly, they were mostly government officers. They were mentioned even by Yajnavalkya, as quoted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Chattataskar Dhuvrater Maha Saha Sikhadibi Pidyamana Praja Rakshet Kayashtaischa Visheshataha. From this verse, it appears that the governmental officials of the Kayasta community would sometimes chastise the citizens. And thus, it was the duty of the king to protect the people in general from the atrocities of the Kayastas. In Bengal, the Kayasta community is honored as almost as much as the Brahmana community. But in the upcountry of India, the Kayastas are considered Shudras because they generally eat meat and drink wine. In any case, from history, the Kayastas appear very intelligent. Thus, the Muslim Chaudhary was afraid of Raghunath Das because he belonged to the Kayasta community. Tabe Raghunath Kichu Chintila Upai Vinati Kariya Kahe She Mletchapai. While this was going on, Raghunath Das thought of a tricky method of escape. Thus, he humbly submitted this plea at the feet of the Muslim Chaudhary. My dear sir, my father and his elder brother are your brothers. All brothers always fight about something. Sometimes brothers fight among themselves, and sometimes they have very friendly dealings. There is no certainty when such changes will take place. Thus I am sure that although today you are fighting, tomorrow you three brothers will be sitting together in peace. Just as I am my father's son, so I am also yours. I am your dependent, and you are my maintainer. For a maintainer to punish the person he maintains is not good. You are expert in all the scriptures. Indeed, you are like a living saint. When the Muslim heard Raghunath Das's appealing voice, his heart softened. He began to cry, and tears glided down his beard. The Muslim Chaudhary told Raghunath Das, "You are my son from this day on. Today, by some means, I shall get you released." After informing the minister, the Chaudhary released Raghunath Das and then began to speak to him with great affection. "Your father's elder brother is less intelligent," he said. "He enjoys 800,000 coins, but since I am also a shareholder, he should give some portion of it to me. Now, you go arrange a meeting between me and your uncle. Let him do whatever he thinks best. I shall completely depend on his decision." Raghunath Das arranged a meeting between his uncle and the Chaudhary. The matter was settled, and everything was peaceful. In this way, Raghunath Das passed 1 year exactly like a first-class business manager. But the next year, he again decided to leave home. He got up alone one night and left, but his father caught him in a distant place and brought him back. This became almost a daily affair. Raghunath would run away from his home, and his father would again bring him back. Then Raghunath Das's mother spoke to his father as follows. "Our son has become mad," she said. "Just keep him by binding him with ropes." His father, being very unhappy, replied to her as follows. "Raghunath Das, our son, has opulences like Indra, the heavenly king, and his wife is as beautiful as an angel. Yet all this could not tie him down, could not tie down his mind. How then could we keep this boy by binding him with ropes? It is not possible even for one's father to nullify the reactions of one's past activities. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has fully bestowed his mercy on him. Who can keep home such a madman of Chaitanya Chandra?" Then Raghunath Das considered something in his mind, and the next day he went to Nityananda Gosai. In the village of Panihati, Raghunath Das obtained an interview with Nityananda Prabhu, who was accompanied by many kirtan performers, servants, and others. Sitting on a rock under a tree on the bank of the Ganges, Lord Nityananda seemed as effulgent as hundreds of thousands of rising suns. Many devotees sat on the ground surrounding him. Seeing the influence of Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunath Das was astonished. Raghunath Das offered his obeisances by falling prostrate at a distant place, and the servant of Nityananda Prabhu pointed out, "There is Raghunath Das offering you obeisances." "Shuni Prabhu kahe, chora dile darshan. Ai, aji tora karimu dandana." Hearing this, Lord Nityananda Prabhu said, "You are a thief. Now you have come to see me. Come here. Today I shall punish you." The Lord called him, but Raghunath Das did not go near the Lord. Then the Lord forcibly caught him and placed his lotus feet upon Raghunath Das's head. Lord Nityananda was by nature very merciful and funny. Kautuki. Being merciful, he spoke to Raghunath Das as follows. You are just like a thief, for instead of coming near, you stay away at a distant place. Now that I have captured you, I shall punish you. Make a festival and feed all my associates yogurt and chipped rice. Hearing this, Raghunath Das was greatly pleased. Raghunath Das immediately sent his own men to the village to purchase all kinds of eatables, and bring them back. Raghunath Das brought chipped rice, yogurt, milk, sweetmeats, sugar, bananas, and other eatables, and placed them all around. As soon as they heard that a festival was going to be held, all kinds of brahmanas and other gentlemen began to arrive. Thus, there were innumerable people. Seeing the crowd increasing, Raghunath Das arranged to get more eatables from other villages. He also brought 200 or 400 large round earthen pots. 200 or 400 large round earthen pots. He also obtained 5 or 7 especially large earthen pots, and in these pots a brahmana began soaking chipped rice for the satisfaction of Lord Nityananda. In one place, chipped rice was soaked in hot milk in each of the large pots. Then half the rice was mixed with yogurt, sugar, and bananas. The other half was mixed with condensed milk and a special type of banana known as champakala. Then sugar, clarified butter, and camphor were added. After Nityananda Prabhu had changed his cloth for a new one and had sat on a raised platform, the Brahmana brought before him the 7 huge pots. On that platform, all the most important associates of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, as well as other important men, sat down in a circle around the Lord. Among them were Ramdas, Sundarananda, Gadadhar Das, Murari, Kamalakara, Sadashiva, and Purandara. Dhananjaya, Jagadish, Parameshwara Das, Mahesh, Gauri Das, and Hoda Krishna Das were also there. Similarly, Udharana Dhatto, Thakur, and many other personal associates of the Lord sat on the raised platform with Nityananda Prabhu. No one could count them all. Purport, the devotees mentioned here are described by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his Anubhashya. For further information, one may consult the following references in the Adi Lila. Ramdas, chapter 10, text 116 through 118, and chapter 11, text 13 through 16. Sundarananda, 11.23. Gadadhar Das, 10.53, 11.13 through 15, and 11.17. Murari, the Murari mentioned herein is different from Murari Gupta. His full name is Murari Chaitanya Das, and he is a personal associate of Nityananda Prabhu. Thus one should consult chapter 11, text 20, Kamalakar 11.24, Sadashiva 11.38, Purandara 11.28, Dhananjaya 11.31, Jagadish 11.30, Parameshwara 11.29, Mahesh 11.32, Gauridas 11.26, Hoda Krishnadas 11.47, and Udarananda Datta Thakur 11.41. Can everyone remember all those? Hearing about the festival, all kinds of learned scholars, brahmanas, and priests went there. Lord Nityananda Prabhu honored them and made them sit on the raised platform with him. Everyone was offered 2 earthen pots. In one was put chipped rice with condensed milk, and in the other chipped rice with yogurt. All the other people sat in groups around the platform. No one could count how many people were there. Each and every one of them was supplied 2 earthen pots. one of chipped rice soaked in yogurt, and the other chipped rice soaked in condensed milk. Some of the brahmanas, not having gotten a place on the platform, went to the bank of the Ganges with their 2 earthen pots and soaked their chipped rice there. Others, who could not get a place even on the bank of the Ganges, got down into the water and began eating their 2 kinds of chipped rice. Thus some sat on the platform, some on the base of the platform, and thus some sat on the platform, some at the base of the platform, and some on the bank of the Ganges. And they were all supplied 2 pots each by 27 men who distributed the food. At that time, Raghava Pandit arrived there. Seeing the situation, he began to laugh in great surprise. He brought many kinds of food cooked in ghee and offered to the Lord. This prasadam he first placed before Lord Nityananda and then distributed among the devotees. Raghava Pandit said to Lord Nityananda, "For you, sir, I have already offered food to the deity, but you are engaged in a festival here, and so the food is lying there untouched." Lord Nityananda replied, "Let me eat all this food here during the day, and I shall eat at your home at night. I belong to a community of cowherd boys, and therefore I generally have many cowherd associates with me. I am happy when we eat together in a picnic like this by the sandy bank of the river." Lord Nityananda made Raghava Pandit sit down and had 2 pots delivered to him also. There were 2 kinds of chipped rice soaked in them. When chipped rice had been served to everyone, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, in meditation, brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived, Lord Nityananda Prabhu stood up. They then saw how the others were enjoying the chipped rice and yogurt with condensed milk. From each and every pot, Lord Nityananda Prabhu took 1 morsel of chipped rice and pushed it into his mouth, and pushed it into the mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a joke. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also smiling, took a morsel of food, pushed it into the mouth of Lord Nityananda, and laughed as he made Lord Nityananda eat it. In this way, Lord Nityananda was walking through all the groups of eaters, and all the Vaishnavas standing there were seeing the fun. No one could understand what Nityananda Prabhu was doing as he walked about. Some, however, who were very fortunate, could see that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also present. Then Nityananda Prabhu smiled and sat down. On his right side, he kept 4 pots of chipped rice that had not been made from boiled paddy. Lord Nityananda offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a place and had him sit down. Then together the 2 brothers began eating chipped rice. Seeing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eating with him, Lord Nityananda Prabhu became very happy and exhibited varieties of ecstatic love. Lord Nityananda Prabhu ordered, "All of you eat, chanting the holy name of Hari." Immediately the holy names, Hari Hari, resounded. Hari Hari, Hari Hari, filling the entire universe. Hari Hari bhole, Vaishnava karaya bhojana, Polina bhojana shabhar, Haila shmarana. When all the Vaishnavas were chanting the holy names, Hari Hari, and eating, they remembered how Krishna and Balaram ate with their companions, the cowherd boys, on the bank of the Jamuna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu are extremely merciful and liberal. It was Raghunath Dasa's good fortune that they accepted all these dealings. Who can understand the influence and mercy of Lord Nityananda Prabhu? He is so powerful that he induced Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come eat chipped rice on the bank of the Ganges. All the confidential devotees who were cowherd boys, headed by Sri Ramdas, were absorbed in ecstatic love. They thought the bank of the Ganges to be the bank of the Jamuna. When the shopkeepers of many other villages heard about the festival, they arrived there to sell chipped rice, yogurt, sweetmeats, and bananas. As they came, bringing all kinds of food, Raghunath Das purchased it all. He gave them the price for their goods and later fed them the very same food. Anyone who came to see how these funny things were going on was also fed chipped rice, yogurt, and bananas. After Lord Nityananda Prabhu finished eating, he washed his hands and mouth and gave Raghunath Das the food remaining in the 4 pots. There was food remaining in the 3 other big pots of Lord Nityananda, and a Brahmana distributed it to all the devotees, giving a morsel to each. Then a Brahmana brought a flower garland, placed the garland on Nityananda Prabhu's neck, and smeared sandalwood pulp all over his body. When a servant brought betel nuts and offered them to Lord Nityananda, the Lord smiled and chewed them. With his own hands, Lord Nityananda Prabhu distributed to all the devotees whatever flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, and betel nuts remained. After receiving the remnants of food left by Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunath Das, who was greatly happy, ate some and distributed the rest to his own associates. Thus, I have described the pastimes of Lord Nityananda Prabhu in relation to the celebrated festival of chipped rice and yogurt. Nityananda Prabhu rested for the day, and when the day ended, he went to the temple of Raghava Pandit and began congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Lord Nityananda Prabhu first influenced all the devotees to dance, and finally he himself began dancing, thus inundating the entire world in ecstatic love. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was observing the dancing of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu could see this, but the others could not. The dancing of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, like the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, cannot be compared to anything within these 3 worlds. No one can properly describe the sweetness of Lord Nityananda's dancing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally comes to see it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol. And just a little bit from where we left off. I surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshana in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. Is everyone okay? Okay. Purport. This is a verse from Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, here comes the next verse and a couple of paragraphs. Ready? Are you sure? Prakriti para paravyoma name dham Krishna vigraha jaiche vibhutyadi gunavan. Prakritira, the material nature. Para, beyond. Paravyoma, the spiritual sky. Name, in name. Dham, the place. Krishna vigraha, the form of Lord Krishna. Jaiche, just as. Vibhuti adi, like the 6 opulences. Gunavan, full with transcendental attributes. Translation. Beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Paravyoma, the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes, such as the 6 opulences. Purport. According to Sankhya philosophy, the material cosmos is composed of 24 elements. The 5 gross material elements, the 3 subtle material elements, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 active senses, the 5 objects of sense pleasure, and the Mahat Tattva, the total material energy. Empiric philosophers, unable to go beyond these elements, speculate that anything beyond them must be avyakta, or inexplicable. But the world beyond the 24 elements is not inexplicable, for it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the eternal Sanatana nature. beyond the manifested and unmanifested existence of material nature, vyakta is the Sanatana nature, which is called the Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky. Since that nature is spiritual in quality, there are no qualitative differences there. Everything there is spiritual, everything is good, and everything possesses the spiritual form of Sri Krishna himself. That spiritual sky is the manifested internal potency of Sri Krishna. It is distinct from the material sky manifested by his external potency. So there are great endeavors everywhere in the world to describe the material world. There are universities from coast to coast in America in which there's an exhaustive study of various aspects of this world. And entrepreneurs, like those who started Google, if you're in here, I can't recognize you because of the masks, have taken up a project to make all information available at every second. This is their idea. All they want in exchange is your privacy. And it doesn't matter how much information they're able to funnel through a device. It doesn't give information that's beyond the closed system of the material nature. This universe is encased in various layers of material nature, each one 10 times thicker than the last: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And the living beings within this universe are getting faulty information. Pratyaksha means aksha, means eyes. It's coming from somebody else's eyes. If it doesn't come from your eyes, it came from somebody else's eyes. Pratyaksha information. Somebody saw it and they pass it on to you. But their experience is within the elements named earlier by the Sankhya philosophers. So no matter which ways you count it, you can go deeper and deeper into the material nature. And as Vrindavan Priya Prabhu told me the other day when I said, what happens to a physicist who goes unlimitedly deep within the study of the material elements? He said he comes to a void. There's no answer there. There's no answer on Google either, unless you Google Hare Krishna. But the endeavor to gather information in this material world has been going on since time immemorial. Human beings try to get information. There's another aspect of human society and of learning, like for instance in the humanities. What are those all about? Over the last couple hundred years, there's been more of a divide between philosophy and religion and aesthetics. And a sense has grown in the world, has it not? That through science we'll describe everything, and everything else is basically not so important. It's just incidental and pretty much nonsense. But from the point of view of the Hare Krishna, we welcome Her Grace Urmila Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna. Everybody stand up. Hare Krishna.
What are their names?
Shishi Radha Madan Mohan. Hare Krishna,
This is
Hare
part of
Krishna.
individual, spontaneous, and voluntary, right?
Now that you're here, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all. You're the main event. Thank you very much for coming. We welcome you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it was a completely last-minute decision, like, literally.
That's welcome to my world.
Like, oh, you're going to the West Coast, would you like to come to the Bay Area? Tomorrow?
Hare Krishna. For those of you online who maybe not have understood what happened, Her Grace Urmila Devi has come to ISV for the first time, and we're just welcoming her. She's one of the early pioneers of the Krishna consciousness movement and has remained a leader in the world of Shastra and research and presenting Krishna consciousness in relevant ways all over the world. This is her first time to ISV, so we're deeply touched. It's a very auspicious sign that as we're beginning to open our doors, we've attracted such a great Vaishnavi. Correct? Yes. Everyone agrees, say Haribol. So, in the process of pratyaksha, that is coming from the I level and observing the material nature, even those with very advanced technology become confused. As mentioned in the Muhyanti Yatsurayaha, in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the material nature is bewildering even for the devas. Krishna manifested and it appears to be real. We know even Brahma, who tried to exert his mystic potency, was bewildered by Krishna's overwhelmingly powerful potencies. And therefore, a different method is required to understand what's beyond this world. As is being described here, the paravyoma is beyond the material nature and is full of the opulences that Krishna himself has. And that can be understood by surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Atashi Krishna namadi nabhaved grayam indriye sevan bhukihi jivado swayameva spuratyada. One cannot see Krishna or the spiritual nature with one's blunt material senses. However, if one takes the mood of a servant and begins that service in yoga with the tongue by chanting Hare Krishna, then Krishna Nayamatma pravachanena labhyona medhayana bahuna shrutena. If he decides, of course this verse I just quoted says you can't see Krishna even if you're very expert, if you're a very intelligent expert, meaning you can give great lectures, and tashaisha eva vinute tanun swam, but he reveals himself, his own form, to those to whom he's inclined to reveal it. And therefore the process of devotional service is to take the humble position of a servant, and the message of Krishna comes down through his parampara and representatives who meet us where we are in the world and speak as representatives. Devotees become the representatives of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that they are like Vaidya's or doctors that travel around with a little black bag to administer the medicine that's necessary to awaken a soul. And in that little black bag, these devotee doctors carry hymns and instructions. The hymns are the transcendental vibrations that we heard about in the Brahma Samhita earlier. Uvacha puratastasmai tasya divya saraswati kama krishnaya govinda he gopi jana ityapi balabhaya prayavanir mantraste dasati priyam. Through the representative of the Lord, the mantra is uttered, and when a soul hears it, it awakens within the heart a remembrance of one's spiritual nature, which is remarkable. And then there are instructions to accompany it. The instructions give one the ways in which to organize one's life in order to take full advantage of the transcendental sound vibration. Tannama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyoja tishtan vraje tananuragi jananugami kalam nayat akilam ityupadesha saram. He gives, Dasa Rupa Goswami, the essence of all advice, that one should organize one's life around this principle of hearing, chanting and remembering, but it all begins with hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his instructions and about the spiritual world. And if received through the proper channel, then the sound vibration has the potency to awaken within the mind and heart of any living entity, or at least one who's not pretending to be asleep, the possibility of going back to the spiritual world. Though I remember a profound experience I had in New York City when we were having a Harinam Sankirtan. We'd leave right from the temple and go out, because that's possible in New York. Every place is a Sankirtan spot, including it right outside the door. And I must say we had a robust Harinam party with several mudungas and enough kartals to attract attention. And devotees enthusiastically burst from the temple, going down the street, and it was a joyous sound vibration that could not be denied unless one was determined to deny it. And I noticed that as we went by, many people, well, everyone had some reaction. And that included in that were non-reactions, which were the most interesting to me, because it obviously couldn't be denied. The joyous singing and the holy names, which were bouncing off the walls of the buildings. And I noted that there were some men loading boxes, and we went right next to them, 2 feet away as we passed by them. And they went on with their work without lifting their eyes from the boxes and looking or noticing or indicating, giving some kind of appreciation. Some people gave appreciation, waved. Other people at least said, you guys, this is crazy. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And so those who didn't look up at all, I had this feeling of the causeless, eternal desire of the Nityabhada to avoid Krishna. And so this is something that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also came to awaken even those who would try to avoid him. He thought of ways to build a network that everyone, including those who were rascals, could eventually be captured and take to the process of Krishna consciousness. So those are a few preliminary thoughts, but let's have some reflections and questions in order to expand the conversation. Are the microphones ready? Yes, Sundarananda Prabhu.
I was thinking about the point when you were talking about Krishna reveals himself to us. I was remembering from Krishna book, the pastime of Kalyavana. He tried to actually catch Krishna by running behind Krishna, and Krishna was just going through his army, but he was not able to capture Krishna. At the same time, Muchukunda was actually sleeping in a cave nearby, and Krishna went to him and delivered him. So I was just reflecting on that pastime as you were talking about how Krishna chooses to reveal himself as he desires.
Please give me a verse from the Sri Ishopanishad about how he can run faster than anyone. Take the mic.
Tadejati tad naijati tadire tad vantike.
Let her do it. Keep going. It's in the neighborhood. Say it loud with confidence. Go ahead.
Tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya bharataha.
Means?
Yeah, see he, the Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. He is far away, yet he is very near as well. He is within everything. Yeah.
And yet he is outside of everything. And what's the next one? The one that fits the purpose. It's just before that, I think, huh? Go ahead. Anijadikam manaso jeviyo naina devapnuvam purvanarashat tadavaton yanate titishtat tasminapo matarishva tadati. Let's look at that, please. Can you grab the book and put it up? You got to go fast, though. So Krishna's position is described in the beginning of the Sri Upanishad. Ane jarikam manaso javiyo naina deva nuvan purvanarshat tadavatun yanat yeti tishtat tasminapo matarishva dadhati. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. What else? Prabhu Govinda, good to see you. Partially, I mean.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Actually, Sundaran Prabhu mentioned about Kalyavan and Muchukund. So I just happened to see on YouTube that there is the place where Muchukund was sleeping is actually in Rajasthan. It's in a place called...
I'll translate for you because it's almost impossible to hear through whatever those master... M2?
Sorry. Hare Krishna, sorry. So I by chance, I came to know that that place where King Muchukund was sleeping is actually in Rajasthan. It's a place called Dholpur. So and they have built a Radhakund styled kind of a, structures, etc. And there's a place for King Muchukund there as well, temple. So basically, Krishna ran all the way from Gujarat to Rajasthan. So that was, and obviously it's described that Krishna kept Kalyavan at a hand's distance, so that he was always encouraged to follow him and run after him. So that's so amazing.
It is amazing. There's a way in which when Lord Nrsingadev had apprehended Hiranyakashipu and then he let him go, and the Devas were watching and they became alarmed because they thought, now he saw us watching and cheering on the enemy. It's going to be twice as bad. And Prabhupada explains that sometimes it appears that a person who is dedicated to the materialistic way of life is getting the upper hand in the world. And it's like, well, maybe they do have it better. And maybe they have it right, actually. Maybe the whole other thing is just an imagination. However, Prabhupada explains that it gives him a little bit of false hope, but then he grabs him again and pulls him in. He describes also how a cat plays with a mouse before devouring him. So sometimes it appears that somebody dedicated to materialism is a little bit successful. It seems to be happy for a while, but then is overcome by the inexorable material nature and swallowed up again. Sri Prahlad Maharaj said, Nishpijamanam upakarsha vibho prapanam, that he was fearful of being caught again in the great wheel of time, pulled away. So he's taking shelter of Lord Nrsingadev. Yes, 1, 2.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
I was really appreciating the point where you said we have to take a humble position as a servant. And I was remembering Prahlad Maharaj's prayers where he actually asked from Nrsimhadev that I want to become a servant of a devotee. Like he does, even though he has Nrsimhadev in front of him, he still prays for life after life. He wants to be the servant. So I really like that point of, I just wanted to know some more thoughts, like how to develop that mood. Because we've always heard that we can never approach Krishna just ourselves. We can approach only by devotee, so by being servant of the Dasano Das. So if you can give some advice on how to get that mood.
Well, first of all, we can take Krishna's own perspective. Madbhakta Puja Bhyadika, in the 11th canto, he says that actually the best kind of worship is worship of my bhakta. And he also describes how he takes the dust from the feet of his devotees in order to purify himself. These are his statements. And if Sadavo Hridayam Mahayam Sarunham Hridayam Twaham, he declares to Durvasa Muni when Durvasa comes to him directly and says, please give me shelter from this Sudarshana that's pursuing me, and the Lord defers to Ambarish Maharaj and said, he's my pure devotee, and declares openly that I only think of them, and they only think of me. They're in my heart, I'm in their heart, and he gives him this indication that you have to go to Ambarish and take shelter. And of course, Prabhupada gives the logic, which is easily testable anywhere, at least in my neighborhood, in Burlingame, because it's dog loca. No one is allowed to go for a walk without a dog in my neighborhood. And if you approach somebody walking and you say, hi, how are you? You look great today. They'll think maybe you're an axe murderer or something like that. But if you say, is that a Labrador? They'll immediately stop and tell you their whole family tree and want to know if you want to come over for movies later with the family and things like that. Because, as Prabhupada said, love me, love my dog. And so knowing that the devotees are dear to Krishna and that he openly says that they are most dear to me and worshiping them is the best. We can take his word for it, but we can also see for ourselves the logic behind it. And in a practical way, just understanding the ontology of the whole situation, we're not actually after Krishna. We're after love for Krishna. And Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirtha Kurvanti Tirtani Swantak Snena Gadabrata. Yudhishthira told vidura, that you are a walking place of pilgrimage because you carry within your heart the Dham. And actually what the devotee carries within his or her heart is prema, love for Krishna. That's what we want, actually. We want love for Krishna. The Swarup Shakti is there within the heart of the devotee. So, tadvidi pranipatina prashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita that if you want to advance in knowledge of me and in the spiritual path, then approach somebody who has it, and then gives 3 pieces of valuable advice. They're sometimes described as jewels that you can wear as you could make a bracelet or wear them around your neck, but that is approach as in pranipat. Go there as a completely surrendered person. Like, I give up any other kind of idea that I know something. This is recommended by Brahma, a 3rd verse in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, which is Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiyavartam stani stita shutikatam tanuvan manovira ye prayasu jita jito pyasi tais trilokyam. So when I'll connect the other thought, but when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy about the best process for understanding Krishna, and Ramananda Roy began with talking about varnashrama, and then about giving up varnashrama, and then doing karma mishra yoga, bhakti, karma mishra bhakti, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected these out of hand, said they're external. But then he told the verse from Brahma, Jnane prayasam udapasya. Udapasya means completely, without any trace left behind, the endeavor to understand Krishna directly. Jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiyavartam. One can regain one's life by this process of stanistita shutikatam tanavan manobir, means dedicating one's self to hearing from the self-realized souls, hearing from and worshiping with one's body, mind, and words the topics of the Lord, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. And then one can conquer the unconquerable. And how is that possible? Because Krishna is conquered by the love of his devotees. He becomes submissive to them. So, tadvini pranipatina, if one becomes submissive to somebody who has this within his or her heart, and also renders service, and asks relevant questions, which is not easy to do. And you may notice this. And if you're, for instance, if you study music and you don't practice, when you go back to your teacher, he or she will say, do you have any questions? You say, I don't have any questions. It means you didn't practice. Because if you practice and practice, then somewhere you're going to come to a point where you say, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? So those who are serious about devotional service also, they're trying, and they're hearing. The best hearing and chanting sessions generate good questions. And we walk away hungry. I have to ask another question. And it never stops, the process. So tadvidi pranipatina prashnena sevaya. And if you render service, then the person becomes inclined to you. And as Burijan Prabhu once said, then his or her heart opens. It's quite palpable when somebody's heart opens to you. You can see in their countenance if they're kind of disgusted with the question you asked. Like once a devotee asked Prabhupada the question. I know him too personally, who he is, but I won't mention his name. he was just a bhakta at the time, but he asked Prabhupada, have you met Indra? And Prabhupada became disgusted. He said, what difference does it make to you whether or not I've met Indra? And Trivikram Maharaj jumped up and he said, if Indra met Prabhupada, he'd be lucky. And so, if you go in the right mood, that is that I'm a needy person and I want to serve you, and I'm seriously interested in knowing the truth, and I'm open to what you have to say. After one has triangulated and done one's due diligence to understand how it is that the message of Godhead can come through a person locally. What is the qualification of such a person? And then that is that he or she is tasmad guru prapadyeta jignasu shreya uttamam shabde paritanishnatam brahman upashamashayam. Such a person has taken a dip in the ocean of transcendental knowledge and is also fully absorbed in the same process and has heard sufficiently through the same process from a guru and served, has some skin in the game, and therefore is experienced and is lined up properly. Then from such a person, Krishna says, if you're sincere and approach in these ways, that knowledge will come to you, it will flow down to you. Not just knowledge, but the ways and means to serve Krishna, and the mood, the actual mood of service to Krishna will come into one's heart. It's just a little something. Okay, a couple more, please.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, we have Prabhu and then Bali Mardan.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj.
And we should watch online too, in case, not to neglect, now that we're here in person, our Zoom brethren. Okay, go ahead.
From the earlier reading, I like the point where Raghunath Das Goswami's father is telling that Raghunath Das Goswami has achieved the full mercy, complete mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who can stop madmen of Chaitanya Chandra? So I was just thinking the devotees who have that mercy can do incredible service, something which sometimes appears to be impossible.
Yes, and it's indicative also of your question, Pavani Bhakti, that Raghunath Das became successful in approaching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Heart and soul, he wanted to join him, but he wasn't able to. He kept failing in his attempt. His father would send out a search party and bring him back. But after he meets Nityananda Prabhu and gets his blessings, and Nityananda Prabhu is the origin of the Akhanda Guru Tattva. He's the sum total of all gurus. And so that after he meets Lord Nityananda, that paves the way for him to actually escape from the material nature. You have to have escape velocity to get out of the gravity of the material world. And to get that, you need guru. Guru means heavy. Lagu means light. So the disciple is light. I'm light, I can be blown away. But I need some heavy person who's fully situated in the process of Krishna consciousness. And so Nityananda Prabhu is the representative of all gurus. Or those who represent Nityananda Prabhu is considered a guru. Bali Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. First of all, after a long time, 15 months, we are assembling in the hall with please be Haribo. Thank you for the association, Prabhuji, in person. And my realization is how Raghunath Das Goswami in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, as you are reading, he started consuming Mahaprasadam and attached. And later on, he was not after Mahaprasadam, rather than some remnants is left in the canals, which is coming from this Atharanala, as well as then he also moved into different chhatras, means different anathalayas, then he's collecting. alms. So Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased with the renunciation qualities of Raghunath Das Goswami, and he offered him like Gunjamala and the Govardhan Sila. By such practices only, we do not need to endeavor by eating Mahaprasadam very proud, rather than how he has developed the qualities of renunciation that is pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he took care of him. That was my insight. Thanks for bringing that.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Manjula Kanta. That was beautiful, Bali. Thank you.
Maharaj, I really liked the point that you were saying when you went on Sankirtan in New York, and you were talking about how indifference is such an important way to express your lack of desire to do something. And I was thinking that indifference is such a strong expression, even stronger than hate or frustration, because it's just... it came to me that Srila Prabhupada, when we hear Srila Prabhupada's disciples talk about him, they say that, just a glance. They hardly get to talk to him or say anything. But the way he looked at them, they felt so loved and cared, and they didn't hesitate to give their life away for that one glance that they received. And the other side, there is Parikshit Maharaj's story where he ends up at the ashram and he's upset and offended because the Brahmin there who's in his prayers, he acted like he wasn't there at all. There was an indifference that upset him so much that triggered the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. And I was thinking so much about it because at home when I have my deities, sometimes there are days when I already have prasadam at home and I can't do cooking or something. And what you said really connected back to me, and I was thinking, by not giving them that attention, by giving them my indifference, how offensive is that towards my own deities or anybody? And I was very nice, Maharaj. That was my takeaway, that, indifference is more offensive than even your anger or frustration. Thank you.
Yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi piti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhava sancintitasya sadrishim tanamapurete govindamadi purusham tamamajami. At least get a little angry. But this is an important point. Ignorance, you can also pronounce it ignorance. It's a process of ignoring. Somebody could look it up, please, etymological dictionary. And the whole material world is a facilitation of that tendency to ignore Krishna. And then it becomes institutionalized in the social systems of the world. Everyone develops layers of protection against having to think about Krishna, or about death for that matter, because that's how Krishna comes to those who are determined to ignore him. And then he says, well, yeah, but you know what? Sarvarashaham, I'm coming for you. But I forget about that also. There's a book about the denial of death and how every human endeavor is the hypothesis of the author is to put off, avoid thinking about death. So it becomes, it actually, and Prabhupada mentions this in his writings, it's very difficult to be in ignorance. It takes a lot of work. Yeah. Like if you live with another person, let's just say, and you decide to give them the silent treatment, which is not recommended. It's horrible, actually, isn't it? I mean, doing that is torturous, and it tortures the other person too. More so, as you're bringing out the point, than if you said, "I hate you. You always do that." That's not a very good communication process, but it's better than not saying anything. Slam the door and go. Even slamming the door, just go away and don't say anything. And if you consider that the whole material world and the darkness of the world grows out of that idea that I'll ignore the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then darkness ensues. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoya Andakara. There's a way in which Krishna consciousness is so simple. It just means like, cut it out. Stop the silent treatment And just admit that you're not the center of everything, and just give your heart to Krishna. Don't be envious. And if you can do that, then the light comes back on again. Because there was nothing wrong in the first place. Otherwise, bhayam dvitiya abhinibesha tasyat ishad ape tasya viparyo smriti. I get all turned around, and I'm so full of fear. It can be solved by Krishna consciousness. Just turning towards Krishna. What does it mean? Mike? Go ahead.
Ignorance is from 1200. Lack of wisdom or knowledge, from Old French ignorance, from Latin ignorantia, which means want of knowledge. Ignoration has been used in the sense act of ignoring. The proverb in the form where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise, is from Gray's Ode on a Distant Prospect of Eton College.
What are the most important points from that? Just say for yourself.
Latin ignorantia, which means want of knowledge, that's ignorance, as well as ignoration is act of ignoring.
Can you expound on that?
I actually found it quite interesting that the word ignorantia is want of knowledge, and ignorance, it usually means that you don't want knowledge, but maybe in some inner desire that it ends up like being layered with so many different emotions and thoughts that deep down you still want knowledge, it just gets covered up by the ignorance itself.
Swallowed up by ignorance. Anything else you want to add? So, way of avoiding knowledge. Yes, Malini. Thank you.
Prabhu, I read in extension to what Manjulakanta was saying. You also mentioned...
really hard to hear. Go ahead.
In extension to what Manjulakanta was saying, I really like the way you told about a devotee is a Vaidya, representative is a Vaidya. Even though a lot of people actually want to ignore Krishna, they find creative ways to bring them somehow or other closer to Krishna. Though Krishna said, don't disturb those people who are not interested, but then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Haridas Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu to go door to door. And Prabhupada came to the West trying to preach to hippies. And recently also I went to the Spanish folk temple. There I saw llamas, and I was wondering, what is this llamas? And then I read about their festival. Somehow or other, they're trying to attract people to come. Even those people who actually want to ignore Krishna, they have been facilitated some or the other way that they can come and appreciate Krishna consciousness. May not be in a direct way, but indirect way. So I was thinking how a Vaidya, that word that you mentioned, that the doctor prescribes the medicine according to the time, place, and circumstance. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us of that. And how doctors, when they develop expertise, are able to observe people, like feel their pulse, or just look at their quality of their skin or something like that, and they're able to diagnose them and feel what's wrong. And devotees also become, or are supposed to become, expert in seeing what condition people are in. Ishvare tadadineshu bhalisheshu tu satsucha prema maitri kripopekshaya karoti samadhyamaha. There's a way in which the devotees see those who are open, they're kind of innocent, balisheshu, innocent, childlike people, and then there's people who are against Krishna consciousness, outwardly and inwardly. That's their modus operandi. And so there are different ways that the Srimad Bhagavatam says we should deal with them. That's don't try to engage the people who are envious. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, we've seen, anecdotally, that and of course in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, that those who were dedicated atheists, it's mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat also, when Nimai Pandit left Navadvip, even some of the atheists came and they were lamenting. Oh, where'd he go? Maybe we did like him after all. And he devised a way to attract people. So, oh, just take sannyas. And then in the culture, people were compelled, because when they're babies, you see a sannyasi and it's okay, bow down. So they're just like, there's a sannyasi, bow down. And it happens to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also, as Karabhajana Muni says in one of his famous verses, that Mayamragam dayita yipsitam vadavad. In the Kali Yuga, people are like animals. Mriga. Yeah, Tyaktva Dusija Surepsita Raja Lakshman, Dharmishta Arya Vajasaya, Ragaranya, Mayamragam dayita yipsitam vadavad. Vande Mahapurushate Charanadavindam. The people are animal-like because they've forgotten Krishna, and Mahaprabhu runs after them to give them the opportunity. I heard once that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives Krishna consciousness even to people who don't ask for it. And Lord Nityananda gives it to people who even don't want it. Yes. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 2. Prabhu,
I was just thinking about the Bhayam Dutiya Vinibesha Shastya when you said that. I was yesterday I was reading the first chapter, 28th or 29th verse in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says that, like how we have vaccines for pandemic. Is very appropriate for what Prabhupada mentions in the purport. He says similarly for the material affection, the most important thing is offer the food to Krishna and eat that, so that when you eat the prasadam, automatically you will be, you can actually protect yourself. It's like a vaccine that you can protect yourself from any kind of material infection. And I was just connecting it to Raghunath Das Goswami, where he was actually giving it to everybody. And I was just thinking, is it okay to think that it is Mahaprasadam is very important. Mahaprasadam is probably more important, because the way he showed it to us, that he was just trying to take from everything, all the leftovers and eat it. Is that a right thinking?
That's possible. As we know from many statements in Shastra, there are gradations even within perfection. For instance, we know that Dwarka is perfect, Mathura is more perfect, and Vrindavan is the most perfect. And then we hear Vaikuntash Janito Vara Marupuri Tatrapi Rasotsavad Vrindaranya Mudarapani Ramana Tatrapi Govardhanaha Radha Kunna Mihapi Gokutapate Primamritaplavana Kuryarasya Virajato Giritate Sevam Viveki Nakaha. Description of the various superlatives within the spiritual realm. And it specifically mentioned that there's Mahaprasad and Mahaprasad. They're all perfect, but there's a special way in which, Prabhupada started the movement really by distributing prasadam. Mukunda Maharaj describes in his extremely riveting and charming book about how Prabhupada in New York, he invited everyone to the loft and he had pots full of prasadam. And he went around himself serving it out. And his mantra was, take, take, take. And others recount, in Giriraj Maharaj's new book, he recounts how Prabhupada, in the beginning, when he only had some simple means, he would just cut up an apple, pass that out. And then some halava, passing it out. And so, anyway, yes, it's possible. That is a thing. Yes.
I have a question. I need
good.
Thank you. I need some advice, especially when does Krishna, does he randomly show mercy on people? I'm asking this because when we are trying to spread Krishna consciousness, we reach out to a lot of people. For example, I send out emails or meeting invites that, this program is upcoming and things like that. And immediately I get so many declines. Some of them are auto declines because people are just not available. I just keep getting declines, and I feel that, okay, should I send this the next week or should I not? I regardless still send it because, at least one person would join in the group. So, like the New York story, people are just ignorant. How and when Krishna chooses to become merciful to that person, that person can reciprocate back to the call that Krishna is making?
Well, this question comes up in the beginning of the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because Parikshit Maharaj wants to know, why does it seem like Krishna actually does favor the Devas? He's supposed to be equal. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu nami dvesho stinapriya. Of course, then he goes on, Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham, which is a whole extension of the conversation, but the point is made there by Shukdev Goswami. It's not that Krishna's partial, he's not. However, if somebody is, he's always giving his mercy, just like the sun is good for you. It's got vitamin D, not too much, but not too much sun isn't good for you, but you have to get some sun. But if you go inside your house and you close all the blinds, and then you complain, how come the sun has not given me anything? It's because you're in your house. And Prabhupada gives a similar example in that section of the Bhagavatam, and that is that teachers, they're teaching all their students. But if a particular student becomes interested and begins opening his or her mind and listening more carefully and practicing the lessons, then he gets more, or she gets more out of it. And so similarly, Krishna's offering his mercy universally, and is always waiting for the living entity to turn his attention back to him, and then he gives his full mercy. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te teshu chapyaham. First part of the verse refers to the Paramatma, means that Paramatma is tit for tat. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. Or savasyacham hridi sanivishto matak smritir gihanamo bhuvancham. Whatever you like, and asao gunamayar bhaver bhuta sukshmendriyatmabi swanirviteshu nirvishto bhunkte bhuteshu tadgunan. All these verses indicate the ways in which Paramatma is there reminding and facilitating, overseer and permitter, that if you have a material desire, then I don't recommend it, but that's what you want, so I'll facilitate it. And however, when one becomes interested oneself in Krishna and begins to worship him, then Krishna says, Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya. Now his mercy appears to be inordinate, because he gives more back to the devotee than he could imagine. Therefore, his name is Vanchatita. More than you could desire, he gives mercy. So it's a conundrum. However, from the point of view of Bhagavad Gita, also, Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohanirbhukta bhajantimam drudhavrta. There's a way in which Krishna describes people that are they're more pious. They're situated in a higher mode of nature. Possible for them to be more receptive. And also, as encouragement, when Prabhupada was asked this question, he'd often quote, Manushyanam sahasreshu kashid yatati siddhaye, yatatamapi siddhanam kashyin mamveti tattvata. It's rare that out of millions of people, there are only a few that get interested in spiritual life. And of those, hardly one knows me in truth, Krishna says. So it's a very rare thing, actually, that you're offering to people. And I mean, how many emails do you answer? I mean, do you answer all the emails that come in? So people are overwhelmed and they don't even know what it is. So we have to really make ourselves visible to attract the ones that might be interested. And it doesn't mean that if somebody rejects it also that they didn't get some benefit. Maybe in the act of rejecting it, that's I mean, anecdotally, I mean, every one of you knows some story. You talked to a devotee and said, you know, I hated those guys. Or I thought they were really weird. Or I told them no. Or something like that, right? And then they circled back and said, wait, what? What are you doing? And then, well, you know, we're chanting and this and that. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told his matbasis, that you should go out every day and knock on at least 3 doors. He said, even if people close the door on you, at least they'll think that a saintly person has come here and they'll remember Krishna. And then sometimes when he'd read an unfavorable article written about the devotees, he would say, okay, so how many times did they say Krishna? And then he'd count them up and say, okay, that wasn't a bad article. That was his perspective. So you're doing great. You're attracting so many people coming into the Bhakti. I mean, it's amazing how many people are joining your program and coming in and giving their full hearts. I mean, even if you got one of those people, the type of people that you have coming into your program, it would be amazing. But you've got half a dozen, maybe, that are, you know, they're sticking. If somebody actually comes back to a program, that's a big deal. One time they come back. It's like, you came back. Because a lot of people can go one time and then it's like, yeah, I love this, it's great, thanks for everything. It's like, then you never see him again. But if they come back, they voted with their feet and they came back the second time, then there's something like, why, wait a minute, why'd you come back anyway? You sure you like this? Do you know all about what we do? And they're like, I don't care, I just like you guys. It's a little bit of a mystery. I mean, we can explain from different points of view. In the Madhurya Kadambini, there's a very kind of enigmatic description of how the Madhyamadhikaris are distributing and they give mercy, and there's all kinds of back and forth on that issue and discussions in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But from our point of view, just from a practical point of view, that it's good for us, because when we present Krishna consciousness sincerely and as straightforwardly as possible, and then people respond to it, we get invigorated. Because then we remember that, wow, these mantras actually work. Because it's easy enough to get into Niyamagraha and think, I'm chanting, I'm not that advanced, you know. Maybe it's just for other people, not for me. But when we test the mantras, just like in days of yore, when the brahmanas would do a yajna, and they would bring an animal, and then sacrifice the animal with the mantras, and then the animal could come back as a little baby animal, or reconstituted the body through the mantras, and they go, yeah, the mantra's still working. That's how they test them out. So we test our mantras too, for ourselves. It's like you meet somebody and say, oh, hey, Hare Krishna, and you're not your body, and go through the mantras, and then they go, really? Okay, I like this. And they come back and they go, hey, my mantras work. It's a test of the mantras. But in general, people aren't interested in anything that has to do with there being a boss. Many of the religious philosophies that are very popular, so-called religious philosophies, there's no boss there. Like in Mayavad, you become the boss. It's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then in Buddhism or nihilistic ideas, there's like, ultimately, there's no boss, there's no nothing. It's like, get rid of the boss. And materialism, if you work really hard, then you'll be some kind of boss. And Krishna consciousness, Krishna's the boss, that's it. And people are like, I don't know if I like that so much. I think I like the other ones where there's no boss, or like I become the boss. That sounds better. So generally, people's hearts change over time because of association. And they notice that devotees are nice. They think like, wow, they've got some qualities here that we don't recognize. When we're amongst ourselves, oftentimes, there's could be quarreling, or a sense of like, who do you think you are, and stuff like that. because we get familiar. But actually, devotees are all exalted. They have such refined qualities. What is it? 5:18:12. Yes. Di bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvar gunas tatra samasati sura harava bhakta sukhuto mahadguna manorite nasati dhavato bihi. The devotees, they're chanting Hare Krishna in the process, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Proja, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Jana Yashivayra Gyam Jnanam Chayara Haitakam. They start developing good qualities, and people notice that after some time, and then they become attracted to it. But anyway, it's also a practice to be detached in presenting and let people go, individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. And they'll notice that too. So, you're not too clingy or grabby. You just present it, and if you like it, you can stay. Anyway, it's a big topic, but you're doing great. Prabhu, Srivatsa in the back.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I was thinking about how indifference was the opposite of love, and I was thinking about how one of the worst feelings one can experience is a feeling of neglect, that one has been like, the love that they've given has not been reciprocated properly. And I was thinking about how when like if someone hates me, at least there's the thought that, hey, at least they remember me, And I mean, it's a very twisted like satisfaction, but it's better than like complete like neglect.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how much pain Krishna has been going through after being neglected for so many lifetimes by me. And he's been giving me all this love, and I've repaid it by completely neglecting his existence and acting as if I'm the center of everything. And centering my life around my needs, and this is what I want to do, and I'll nurture this bad habit rather than become a good devotee. And I was thinking about that, and I remembered a couple points you made in previous classes about how even Kamsa hated Krishna, but he got some benefit out of it, but King Vena was completely negligent of Krishna, and he got nothing out of it. And how if one wants to really join the movement of Mahaprabhu, one has to make the process a very personal thing for themselves, and really like dive into it.
Nice point, Srivata. Prabhu, thank you very much. And then I would like to hear any commentary you'd like to speak on Urmila Devi that's come up so far.
Hare Krishna. I'm sorry I missed the first part. I got in very late last night. I just had some thoughts about the same idea about indifference and hatred, and I'd really like to hear from you. Something I never thought about before, kind of exploring. So that generally the way that we're supposed to deal with Maya is indifference. It's in the 64 Angas of Bhakti, I think it's in the first 20, to not, rejoice in wonderful things and lament in negative things. And it's a repeating instruction, even as far as sadhana bhakti. Just this indifference to happiness and distress, and heat and cold, and fame and infamy, honor and dishonor. And even, Prabhupada even uses the word callous. And he'll say you become callous even about the death of a near relative. And so when we talk about detachment, we have this indifference. To the Jed Bharata, it said that he had felt waves of dissatisfaction in his mind from the insults of Rahugana, and he just neglected them. But then thinking about neglect and indifference as the opposite of love, rather than hate being the opposite of love, we're not to hate anything. And like you made this statement that once we look at Krishna, we realize there really was never a problem. And you see, everything is, Prabhupada, this one class of Prabhupada says 3 times in a row that to the great devotees, there is no material world, there is no material world, there's no material world. So I'm trying to kind of, all right, if I'm going to see Krishna everywhere, and I see everything as Krishna's energy that's none different from him, then I love everyone and everything that happens is a source of joy. And yet we find this repeated instruction about indifference. So I was considering, and I'd like your feedback on this, if I'm going in the right direction with this, that what we're indifferent to is not the world. That what we're indifferent to is the energy of forgetting Krishna. It almost sounds like a tautology. It's like we'd be indifferent to the indifference. We're neutral toward this ignoring of Krishna, but we're not neutral toward the world. Am I onto something here? I never thought about it this way before, and just in listening to you, it's like.
Well, you're always on to something.
Well, but I wonder if it's something in the right direction or not.
Well, yeah, obviously it's in the right direction, and you already started to answer it, and open the discussion in a certain way. And some of it is really the semantics of it is helpful. So, look into what we mean by indifference. I was considering that there's a sense of respect that Prahlad Maharaj has for the material energy. He respects the fact that it's extremely powerful, and that if I'm completely indifferent to it, I might get sucked back in, or if I forget its power. And really, this is the sum and substance of Sambandha Jnana. There's an element of exploring the material world and noticing that it's okay, it's bhumir apo analo vayu kammano bhurir evacha ahankara ityame binna prakritirashtada. It's a separated energy, but what makes it separate is consciousness. Prabhupada describes that in brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagnau brahmanohutam brahmaiva tena gantavya brahmakarma samadhina. The ways in which when separated energies are used in the service of the source of those energies, then it becomes, its spiritual qualities regained. And Narada says a similar thing at the end of chapter 5 of the first canto of the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport to Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir that the matter is just spirit covered over by this misunderstanding of its source. And so I think that through Sambandha Jnana, there's an element that's important that you're bringing up, that the devotees remember the tattva, the thatness of it. What category is it in? If somebody doesn't have tattva, if they don't have a clear idea of what category it's in, for instance, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted from Vishnu Purana when he says, Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetragyakya Tatapara Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritya Shakti Rishite. He described, for the benefit of Sanatana Goswami and all of us, that there are 3 categories of energy. One of them is internal, the other one is the external, which is symptomized of being full of fruit of activities. And the third is the Tatastha Shakti that can interact with either of them. So Sambandha Jnana, there's this understanding of the category that the material nature comes into. And when I was listening to your excellent question, I was thinking that there's a way in which one could, to one's peril, neglect the material nature, and it can circle back around and bite you, in the vernacular. There's a way in which sometimes, by not seeing its connection to Krishna, obviously, we miss the opportunity to actually become renounced, anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandhasan Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya muchite. If we see it as Krishna's energy, then, and there's a way to engage it, then we don't fall into the trap of simply ignoring it, but we see it in its rightful connection to Krishna, and we're able to engage it in that way. What were you going to say? Same thing? Are we going down the right path, or do you want to ask it again to get us back on track? Keep going.
It's also just interesting, the branches you're taking it in, it's also interesting. Maybe if I were to put it really succinctly, we would say, what is the role of indifference? Because there's so many quotes throughout the Shastra about this neutrality towards happiness and distress, honor, dishonor, fame, infamy. You know, so many about this neutrality. And then we also have so many quotes about seeing Krishna everywhere. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost to him, and he's never lost to me. Premanjana Trita Bhakti Vilochana. I mean, with so many. So, can you?
Well, in a practical way.
Can you put those two things together?
I'll try. There's a practical side for devotees. The direction really is that everything's engageable in a service, and those aspects of the material nature that could distract us from service, we're careful to avoid them. In other words, our avoidance of material nature, or our neglect of material nature, is that aspect of the material nature that might distract us from service. And so there's a sense of tender, loving neglect that we give it TLN. We're neglecting it because there are certain things that I'm going this way and it's my service. This thing might distract me in another way. And also it's important to recognize, as one's neglecting it, that it's Krishna's illusory energy which is giving me a test. It's testing me to see what my resolve is, and the devotee in that sense could welcome it to show, well, okay, there's unflinching devotional service, so Krishna just gave me a chance to flinch. Tattenu kampam susamikshamano bunjani vatma kritam vibhakam. All these reactions that I'm getting, this kumbhipaka I'm in, it's actually, I put myself in the pot, I turned on the heat, I got the spoon and I'm stirring it up, and I remember that although this is an agitating energy and it's disturbing everything, where did it come from? That's there within the Sambandha Gyan, remembering one's Sambandha, one's connection to it. And then, as per the Avadhuta Brahmana, there's a way in which, looking at the material nature becomes a source of instruction for the advanced devotees who's seeing that there's the prostitute, there's the mountain, the tree, the arrow maker. It's not distracting at all because the devotee's seeing the lesson in it. So we've seen in a practical way, for instance, in our own organization, that those who don't have this refinement in the way that they deal with the material nature neglect things or people artificially, and then create another kind of a problem. And that happens, obviously, oftentimes for those who are beginning in any process. They don't know how to apply everything, and they overdo it, and they're not nuanced enough in their understanding of how to neglect properly. There should be a class at the university, Applied Neglect. That's Krishna consciousness. What are you studying? What's your major in? Applied Neglect. And that's why I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was asked, what's a Vaishnav? He said, Asatsangatyage Vaishnavachara. Somebody who knows how to properly neglect somebody. And Prabhupada talks about this. So does the Bhagavatam itself, 7th canto, end of the 7th canto. Narada Muni is talking to Yudhishthira, and he tells him that a grahastha, for instance, isn't to emotionally starve the family members because that person, let's say it's a father of the family, feels like I'm a sannyasi, even though I'm in this ashram. It's like, I'll show them. It's like they don't talk to their kids and their wife is like, who are you? You're Maya. Narada basically said that won't work. That's not how you neglect. He said, inwardly, you remember that all this is an arrangement by the energy of the Lord, and I'm interacting with other living entities who are have their own existential situation that they're in. And therefore, there's an inner detachment that's informed by one's understanding of the relationship that they all have with Krishna and with Krishna's external energy. And therefore, they're able to dance the dance, to move through the world and not become... It appears that they're expert. They are expert. They become more expert in dealing with the material nature. In fact, Prabhupada says, when dealing with materialistic people, a devotee says, yes, sir, very good, sir. Like, yeah, fine, no problem, because he knows when to zig and zag, and just agree and move on for some things that are not important externally, because you have to stay adjusted to the world. But internally, he's not opening his heart to that person, and the reason that he's neglecting to open his heart to the person is for his own safety, so that it doesn't become overrun by the same samskars that he just got rid of. Because when people are optimistic about the material world, there's a kind of energy that comes from them too that's kind of dangerous. People are thinking, the material world's not such a bad idea. I don't know what you got wrong, what you think is wrong with it. You could do well here. There's other things that are fine in this world besides Krishna consciousness. Which is true if you know how to connect him to Krishna consciousness in your mind, but then you forget the tattva and you can become... Anyway, I think I'm going on and on, but it's a good topic.
Yeah,
You please.
I was just thinking there's one lecture where Prabhupada was saying if you see a beautiful garden and you say it's all false, then the gardener will become depressed. And so he said if you look at the world and say it's all false, he said Krishna will become depressed. He said don't depress Krishna. And just listening to what you were saying now, I thought the only thing that we're supposed to ignore is our ignoring Krishna. We should ignore the tendency to ignore Krishna, so that when that comes, whether it comes in the form of mundane happiness and distress, or the various ups and downs of the mind and the emotions and the body, and that all push us to ignore Krishna, that we should ignore. But ultimately, and this is when you were saying about not having your heart open, the ultimate issue, we should actually be able to have our heart open to everyone and everything, isn't it? We can't do that in the beginning, or we'll be in a lot of trouble. But ultimately, to get to that point where the only thing we're indifferent to and ignoring is anything that will push us to ignore Krishna. Is that?
Yeah, and as I was saying it, I was thinking Sankirtan devotees, that their heart's open to everybody. They're looking to fan the spark. That's a good way to move about the world, because you're thinking how to do good for others. That's the nature of an advanced devotee, is that he or she knows how to do good for others. And Prabhupada said the best way to control the mind, or one of the best ways, is to think of how to do good for others. And if you know how to do good for others, then you've really got a good job, because you feel confident that, wow, you've thought about it a lot, and you know how to do good for others. So there is a kind of way in which your heart's open to everybody. You go to the door, and the guy's like, I don't like this. And you go, yeah, but we like you. And you really mean it. because you're thinking like, yeah, I've heard that before. It doesn't work, you're going to like this. Take it. And, just, the devotees are effusive in their love for all living entities because they're thinking like, okay, I heard once, there's a way in which the least advanced person judges somebody by their past. That's what they did in the past, so this is the way I think of them. And then a more advanced person, they think of them how they are now. Past, let it sleep. This is what you are, I'm taking you as you are now. But the most advanced are the ones who think of the potential of the person. I don't care what you did in the past or what you are now, I know what your potential is. And that's the feeling everyone got from Prabhupada. As kind of Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Pulkasha, you get it from Shukadev Goswami too. Who cares where they're from? Or what kind of neglect mechanism they have. They could still take to Krishna consciousness and the heart's really open. Everyone felt like Prabhupada loved them because he did on that level that you're speaking of. So I think you brought us to the Siddhanta very purposefully. Through all kinds of my meanderings, you brought it back to the perfect point. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And now, just like the old days, we get to have Guru Puja. Oh. Questions on the board. How many are there? Huh? 4 questions on the board. Well, we don't have any more time. We have to have Guru Puja. So save the questions, if you would, and then we'll answer them at the very next opportunity, which may be tomorrow. Okay? Thank you very much. Vanchakalpataruscha kripasnabheva-cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. We're going to move
The recording has stopped.
the mats out of the way and we'll have...
This meeting is being recorded. The recording has stopped.
I'll take one and then you take
This meeting is being recorded.
He's getting you a conch. Okay, but are you blowing?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Namashreshtam, everyone please. Namashreshtam manamapi shachiputramatra sarupam. Shri rupam tasya grajam uruparim maturim goshtavatim. Radha Kundam Girivadamoho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tannatosmi Hey Guru Gyanadadina Bandho Swananda Data Korunaika Sindo Vrindavana Sina Hitavatar Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara He Dinabando Korunaika Sindo Kuru Prasadam Mayamanda Mudhe Laksha Paradhe Bahupapa Gadhe Tadpada Padme Stumatishta Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have attained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachimata, the association of Srila Sarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kunda and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Shri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevalabha Kati Shadna Bando Mui Savadana Mate Bando Mui Savadana Mate. More kartal. Jahara prashade bhai bhavato riyajaya. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chitete Ko Riya Oikya. Anakori homane asha. Anakori homane asha. Shri Guru Charane Rati Eshayu Tamagati. Jai Prashade Pure Sarva Asha. Jai Prashade Pure Sarva Asha. More kartal. Chakudan dilo je janme janme prabhu she. Divya gyan hre prokashita. Divya gyan hre prokashita. Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhija vinasa jate. Prema bhakti jaha hoite abhija vinasa jate. Vede Gai Jahara Charita. Vede Gai Jahara Charita. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Get a drum. Lokana Lokera Jivana. Lokana Lokera Jivana. Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deha More Para Chaya. Ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Para Chaya. Ebe Jash Kushik Tribhuvana. Ebe Jash Kushik Tribhuvana. Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Pada Chaya. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnyavari Paschatya Reshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Kali Kukur Radha Bolo Bolo. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Kali Kukur, Kali Kukur. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Kali Kukur Kanam Jadi Chao Hai. Kali Juga Pavana Koli Poi Nashana Shishachi Nandana Gao He. Garadhar Madhan Nitya Pranadan Advaita Prapujita Gaura. Nimani Vishwambar Srinivashishwar Bhakta Samuva Chitta Chora. Nadiya Shashadar Maya Purishwar Nam Pravartana Sura. Grihi Jana Shikshaka Nyasikula Nayaka Madhava Radha Bhava Pura. Sarvabhauma Shodana Gajapati Tarana Ramananda Poshana Vira. Rupananda Vardana Sanatana Palana Haridas Modana Dhira. Brajaras Bhavana Dushamata Shatana Kapati Vighatana Kama. Shuddha Bhakta Palana Shuksha Gyanatarana Chala Bhakti Dushana Nama Rama. Kali Kukur Kadam Jadi Chao He Kali Juga Pavana Kali Parnashana Shri Sachinandana Gao Hey! Hare Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madan Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupchi Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath H.I. Gosar Kori Charanam Vandan Jaha Hoite Vignanash Abhishta Puran H.I. Gosai Jarmuitar Das Tansabara Pararenu Mora Panchagras Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame Hoe Abila H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Koila Prakash Shri Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Koila Prakash. Get ready. Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Bolo Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pari Mojamiyaman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Kori Ash. Hari Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narotamoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki. Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jayom Vishpad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotarshti Shimad Pai Charanada Vinda Bhaktivedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotarshti Shimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ranganath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Sambheda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees.
The recording has stopped.
We have a couple of announcements, and then we have first grain ceremony. And first announcement is welcome back to our. Thank you, everybody, for holding together during last year, but not just holding together, for excelling in all ways. We developed Bhakti community. We also excelled in book distribution, and all the devotees were extremely cooperative. I'm sorry? I can't hear through Mass. Oh, Ramananda, of course. Ramananda Saka Prabhu basically saved our yatra. He doesn't like to hear such things, but we're deeply grateful to you for just being totally absorbed in deity worship through anything that was going on or anything that ever will go on in this material world. And that was a source of great solace for all of us. Thank you, Ramananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Make sure that Mataji has a seat. And to everyone who kept the worship going, Narayana Paraksarve Nakutashchana Bhipiti Swarga Pavarga Narakesha Pitur Yarti Darshina. To the devotees who are engaged in service, whatever condition is there in the world or wherever we may go, it's equal, it's Tulia, because our main business is to serve in whatever circumstance is given to us. There is no normal in this material world. Actually, it's only a mental construct, what's normal and not. The only thing that's really normal is to go on with service. So thank you everyone for doing that. The second is, we'd like a report, please, from Malini Devi Dasi about the Sankirtan party. Now that we're out of our caves, can you tell us where we are and where we're going?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, we have been distributing books online, And we have a party of devotees going on traveling Sankirtan. They are going... Just to give a background on how they're doing it, they don't have big facility, but they have a strong will. They just have one of the devotees' car got to repair. So in exchange for that, they got a rental car. So they got a pickup truck for rental car. They packed up books in the back of the trunk, and they had a tent, and they started going to all the national forests because a lot of people are now traveling towards open areas where they can recreate. And they're distributing thousands of books. And along with that, they're also distributing Srimad Bhagavatam sets. And they are collecting so many Bhakti community contacts who are actually coming back on those. So the team is... And the team is Kautu Karna Prabhu, Krishna Prabhu, and Pranav Prabhu. They were going. And along with that, there are many devotees who are going to other places as well, to farmers markets. They're going to farmers market to give books, going to Santa Cruz. Last weekend, Kunjari distributed a Bhagavatam set at Santa Cruz. And online, we have distributed sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. And as the discussion today that was going on between His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu and Her Grace Urmila Mataji about indifference, such a beautiful discussion. One point actually Vaisesika Prabhu mentioned is that Sankirtan devotees, they just don't discriminate whether if somebody is indifferent or not. They try their best to go and give some way of Krishna consciousness to others. So we have a huge opportunity. Now things are opening up. And at the same time, we are at our Bhakti Vinod Thakur monthly Sankirtan festival, which started 3 weeks ago. And our goal is very simple. We wanted at least 300 devotees to participate in this marathon. And so how do you get counted to be part of this marathon? Is that you can try to distribute at least 2 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, or you can share at least 3 to 5 contacts, and devotees will reach out to you. So please participate in one or the other way. And all the devotees who participated in this marathon, we will personally offer your names. We will write them down, and we will send them to Surbi Kunj, where we can offer it to Bhaktivinoda Thakur on all of your behalfs. So that is on 9th of July. So we have 3 weekends left. So we request all of you to please participate in this marathon. And some devotees will try to reach out to you. So please be ready with your 2 Bhagavatam sets or your 5 contacts. Prabhu, would you like to say something, Prabhu?
Yeah, the online platform that we've developed during the pandemic, do you see it going on even as we open up? And now we have 2 platforms rather than 1.
Yes, Prabhu. So we haven't still fully opened up to go door to door yet. And we may start sometime in July, depending on how the atmosphere is outside. But still, our calling party will still go on every Saturday, 2 to 4 p.m. And we will continue to distribute our books on the calling party. And we have seen great success. So this is an addition to whatever we were doing before. So this platform will continue.
I have one more thing. We did some statistical analysis yesterday about how book distribution is going all over the world. And out of all the continents in the world, North America has had a steady incline over the last 5 years, compounded percentage-wise. North America has done the best as far as consistency goes, although India has more volume, our consistency is going up. Other places up and down. And also this year, we're having so far from the BBT phenomenal sales, means books that have already been ordered from the BBT, above any other year so far that we've had since we've been measuring over the last 12 years. So this is a real opportunity to catch the momentum. After the last Spanish flu pandemic in 1999 came the Roaring 20s. 1919, sorry. And everyone came rushing out. And now let's take advantage. When people come rushing out, then the first thing they see is Hare Krishna. First thing they hear is Hare Krishna. More Hare Krishna. Okay, please.
Prabhu, I also wanted to mention that kids have summer vacation now, and Kameshwari is organizing the Kids Sankirtan calling party as well. And this is happening every Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. And we request all the kids to please join. I know that you've been very busy with your school and everything, so if you can just come join for an hour. Because when kids start speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam, invariably, everybody actually gets impressed. And we want them to be impressed so that they can come closer to Krishna. So we request all of you to participate. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Molly. Now we have Jai Madhava Prabhu. Please give us a quick report about the Bhakti community.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, all Guru Shri Prabhupada. I'll give a quick presentation on the Bhakti community progress we made this week. If I can be given the sharing access. Yeah, I have it. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
So as you all know, whenever you go out to distribute books and you come in contact with newcomers, please do introduce Bhakti community to them. You can visit bhakticommunity.com/invite-newcomers, where there is a template available how to introduce, or you can send an email to hi@bhakticommunity.com. And we have been working throughout last year, and more so last 7 weeks. The corporate program we have every Friday, where we have had the superpower series called Success Sadhana, where we have touched upon the various superpowers that individual can benefit from. So as part of the culmination of this superpower series, we are very excited to share that with the blessings of His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu and Her Grace Nirakula Mataji, Shriman Madan Mohan, Lord Shri Nrsimhadev, that we are launching a new app called Success Sadhana. Beginning on this International Yoga Day, we'll be launching a new app, Success Sadhana, which will help newcomers track their sadhana progress. So I just want to play a short video which describes the feature of the app. Hopefully the music comes. I'll just restart.
Sadhana means practice, and you know what success means.
So thank you to the entire team who worked tirelessly over several weeks and months to bring this together. And we are very happy. As I mentioned, we will be launching this app in Asia. The launch is Monday, June 21st at 9 a.m. IST. And in North America, the launch is Monday, June 21st at 7 a.m. PST. So 2 days to go. Please do participate in the launch the app. It's an initial version, so with some initial features. We are looking forward to your feedback so that we can continue to improve. And of course, the focus is to share Mahamantra, so that's part of the app as well, so that this can go out and more newcomers can take benefit of it. So please do download, give feedback, and share it with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from this app. Next, quickly, we did start a new series, Bhakti Circle, within Bhakti community, which started 2 weeks ago. And the feedback has been very positive so far. We play a short video, then various facilitators go on to different breakout rooms where they discuss. And we have a very positive feedback, like as you can see, Kautukan Prabhu shared several of those. My apologies, it was great and very insightful. I love the engagement of each participant. So this has come up again and again. People are very engaged in discussing and sharing their realizations, which benefits others. Another Western contact said, beautiful message, world needs it more than ever. I thought Mr. Dasa's story about musteer's search for the scent was such an amazing parable. We look for happiness all around us when it is within us. May all find happiness, peace, and health. Have a good night. So these are all newcomers who are actually realizing this, taking it back, which is benefiting them. So please, in case you come in contact with newcomers, share Bhakti Circle with them, and they will definitely benefit a lot. In addition, we have various service opportunities. In case you know somebody who is looking for service, we have several service opportunities within Bhakti community and will benefit tremendously. More and more newcomers are coming, and we need more and more people to serve them. So thank you for the opportunity to present today.
I get to tell you that on the Bhakti Circle, the participants are so enthusiastic. One of the icebreaker question on Thursday was, what was the best thing that happened to you in the last year? And every one of them said, finding this, finding Bhakti, they said, and reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is for, coming in contact. And they were effusive at saying that it was life-changing and so forth. So this is the open end of the funnel through which anyone that we meet can come into safely now and then come through the process. And I love the graphic in the beginning, the books plus Bhakti community equals Bhakti. Bhakta. That was nice. Hare Krishna. Also displaying where the community partners are, not here, but Hare Krishna. And now we have a first grain ceremony, is that correct?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I just wanted to mention that Simi Mataji's father's first year death anniversary today. If we could all pray for her father.
What is his name?
Kuldeep Chandra Bhatia.
Kuldeep Chandra Bhatia.
Bhatia.
Bhartia.
Bhatia.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please keep Kuldeep Chandra Bhartia at your lotus feet. Always keep him safe and protected and absorbed in your transcendental loving service. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in part or in whole, Please say Hare Krishna.
We also have a birthday of Kelly Kunja Kumari today.
Kelly Kunja Kumari. Kelly Kunja Kumari, you're leading us to the example of someone who goes pillar to post, and in the most strategic part of the race, you've pulled ahead and are setting such a wonderful example. Thank you very much for all that you're doing and have done at ISV and for taking a leadership position. We're all really enlivened by your devotional practices, your personality, how effusive you are, fanning the spark every single place that you go. And we're all praying for your success on all levels. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please empower Kelly Kunja Kumari as you're doing now, but in ever-increasing ways, to help her lead our community and the worldwide Sankirtan community to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. May she always be protected and safe at your lotus feet. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in part or in whole, please say Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, we also had Sadhu Vrindavan's birthday yesterday.
Sadhu Vrindavan Prabhu?
His birthday was yesterday.
Sadhu Vrindavan Prabhu, one of the ways that I know you're special is that every time when we're having a kirtan and you start singing, the devotees go nuts. There's something about your voice with the sincerity from your heart that you brought with you into this lifetime that we've all observed. You picked up the madanga when you were so small that you couldn't even reach the both ends, and I was afraid you were going to break it. And you looked at me like, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. And that's how you've been your whole life. And we're so grateful for you being here and for the way you always lift up the conversations, bringing in Shastra, the kirtans that you sing in, and the way you play madanga and the bass clarinet. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dear Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Lakshmi Nrsingadev, if you so desire, please always keep our Sadhu Vrindavan Prabhu close to us. Please protect him always in devotional service and give him unlimited service to spread the Sankirtan movement all over the world. Please always give him success in everything he does. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in part or in whole, please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Do you have a list anymore? You know, we have like 300 kids, so. All right. Now, if you so desire, we have a first grain ceremony. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a little kirtan, and then we'll do the first grain ceremony. We're going to chant the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita together. And then just after that, guaranteed prasadam for everyone. Vanchakalpadurishya kripasanabheva chat patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo naman koti vaishnavini jai. Om asana mantra semre pishtivishi chandra kuno devatashano pavanashane vinivaha. Om Hara Shakti Namo Manantai Namo Kunumai Nama.
This one is for Kishori. And this one is for
Can you get Malini Mataji over here, please? Can you make sure that everything that she needs, place to sit, anything she wants, just keep her welcome. Okay, little kirtan, please. Short kirtan, but big.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Bolo bolo.
Hare Krishna, Krishna.
Thank you for coming, everybody. Today, we're witnessing the first grains for Kishori and Gopal. This first grain ceremony is a way in which, by performing this ceremony, we're leaving the impression deep within their minds and hearts how eating is connected to Krishna. Because after all, today, Kishori, are you listening, Gopal? You're having none other than the king of all foods, sweet rice, and it's also Mahaprasadam. Not only that, Gopal, hey. Not only that, you're surrounded by devotees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is watching when you take your first grains. And when Narottam Das Thakur was a young baby, I guess babies are young. And the first grain ceremony had commenced. He was a prince, and they had brought on a royal plate made of gold spoon, everything, best sweet rice. And he turned his head, he wouldn't take it. Again and again they tried, and he wouldn't take. And finally someone came and whispered to the king, "Did you remember to offer it to Krishna?" And he's, in the hurry to put everything together, we didn't offer it. He said, "Go offer the sweet rice." So he offered the sweet rice and came back, and then Narottam took. So, Hare Krishna. So the mood of the devotee throughout life is that we'll take whatever is given to me by Krishna as his mercy, and especially food, because anything offered to Krishna in love and devotion and then honored in the way of food stuff purifies our existence. Mahaprasadi Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishvasodna Vijayate. Only those with very meager faith don't feel their hearts jump when they see Mahaprasadam and become excited to honor the Lord by taking prasad. So today, Ishwari, you'll have this opportunity. So remembering how Krishna is the grain, and also he's the digestion, so importantly, there for us. We'll recite the Bhagavad Gita, 15 chapters together now. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Mulam Madashakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Ved Adashchurvam Prashritastasya Shaka Guna Pravrida Vishaya Pravala adascha mulananasantatani karmanubandini manushaloke narupamasye hatatopalabhyate nanto nachadirnacha sampratishta ashvatamenam suvravrudamulam asanga shastrena dridhena chitva tatakpadam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatak pravriti prashrita purani nirmana moha jita sangha dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama Vanverva mukta sukha dukkha samjar gachantya mudha paramavyayam tad natad basayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivardante tadama paramam mama mamaivam sho jiva loke Jiva bhuta sanatanaha manakshastanindriyani prakriti-stani karshati shariram yadavapnoti yachapyukramatishvaraha grihitvaitani samyati vayurgandhani vashayad shotram chakshu sparshanam cha Rasanam granam eva cha adhishtayam anashchayam vishayanupasevate ukramantanstatam vapi bunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshushaha yatanto yoginaschainam Pashyantyatmanyavastitam yatanto pyakritatmano nainam pashyantya chetasaha yad aditya gatam tejo jagad basayate kilam yachandramasi yachagnau tat tejo viti mamekam gam avishya chabhutani Darayam yaham ojasa Pushnami chausadi sarva Somo bhutva rasatmakaha Aham vaishvanaro bhutva Praninam deham ashritaha Prana samayukta Pachamyanam chaturavidam Sarvasya chaham britishan nivishto Mattaksmitir jnanam apohanam cha Vedaishcha sarver ahameva vejo Vedanta kridvera vereva chaham Dvavimau purusha loke Sharaschak shara eva sha Shara sarvani bhutani Kutasto shara uchate Uttama purushastvanya paramat tudaritaha yoloka trayam avishya bibhartavyaya ishvara yasmat sharam atitoham aksharat apichotamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottama Yo mameva masambudho janati purushottamam sasarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata iti guyattamam shastram idam uktam mayanaka etad budva buddhiman syat krita kritascha bharata Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Jana Sambade Purushottam Yogo Nama Panchamodhyayaha Hari Om. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
You're ready.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hey Gopal. Yum yum bapi. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hey Gopal. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Before, what? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, na. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, even before the divining process through which we discover most scientifically the future proclivities of Gopal and Kishori, I can already say something, and that is that Kishori likes the whole thing, not just a spoonful. She's in for everything. So when she's offering Bhagavatams to people and they say, I just want one book, it's like, look it. You take the whole thing, the whole Bhagavatam, the whole process of Krishna consciousness. And Gopal, when I was holding you, I felt like I was holding a set of Srimad Bhagavatams over here. The vibration is so high in these two children that we can feel it. It's palpable. So now that has everyone got a chance to give the grains? Okay, so now we're going to have a divining ceremony, but I think it should be a competition to see who will take the books or the cash. No knives, nothing for Kshatriyas? No? So let's put both one at a time. Oh, all right. I wanted to invent a new process here. Okay. Gopal? Hare Krishna. Don't yell or scream when he grabs onto the Bhagavatams, because then he'll be afraid to go in Sankirtan. Take the Bhagavatam. Gopal, Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Cat. And Bhagavatam. So, not only will Gopal relish the Bhagavatam throughout his life, but he'll also do huge collections for the Sankirtan movement. Hariva! Okay, well done, well done. Kishori, Your turn. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. She's fired up. Go, Kishori. I got everything on you. Take. You're big. She's good. Go. Yeah. Hare Rama. Crisscross. Gopal, you went for the Lakshmi first, then the books. You went for the books, then the Lakshmi. You two will work well together. Hare Krishna. Oh, Haribol. Kishore will have great enthusiasm for devotional service throughout her whole life. Always reading Bhagavatam and spreading it to others. And wherever she goes, she'll attract Lakshmi Devi because she's engaging all of the Lakshmi in Krishna's service. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev. If you so desire, please bless Gopal and Kishori on this day of their first grain ceremonies, that they always remember you, take shelter of you, have love in their hearts for you in everything that they do, and that they spread that love all over the world. Please keep them safe always, and may they be a pleasure to their families and to all the Vaishnavas and to the whole world. Thank you for considering our request. Everyone who agrees with these prayers in part or in whole, or considers that this grain ceremony today was a complete success, say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Okay. Sharirad Vijajao Jodandriya Taheka Jibe Pele Vishaya Shogore Jivayati Loba Moisu Turmati Take Jeta Katita Shanshare Krishna Varadoya Moy Kori by everyone. Joy. Shaprashad Annadi Lobai Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Guna Gao Preme Dako Shri Chaitanya Nihitai Preme Shri Chaitanya Nitai Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Sapapunya Vitam Rajan Vishra Sonavijay Prasade Sarva Dukkanam Hanyasyo Pajayate Prasana Chetaso Yashu Puripada Vitistate Tvayopa Bhukta Shakanda Basalankara Charchitaha Uchishta Bojino Dasas Savamayam Trimahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprasada Ki Gora Premanande Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Prasadam for everyone, including Gopal and Kishori. Haribol. Thank you for coming to ISV. We're going to come back twice as strong as we were before we lackadaisically walked into the pandemic. We're going to come out hard charging, but careful, and do bigger than we've ever done, better rounds, more Bhagavatam, more book distribution, more loving exchanges between the devotees. Everyone who thinks this is a good idea, please say Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpadruvishta kripasindame vacha patitanam bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Go, go, go. We'll be giving out prasadam to go right at the door. So please.